it's Stitch here. Today we're going to be doing a science activity. This is called Sink or Float. So first I'm going to go through our setup. What I have is a bin here filled with water. I filled it about halfway. You can fill it a little bit more if you want. I also have my recording sheet. So I just typed this up on my computer, but you can also handwrite it. So what I have is the object where you can write it in yourself. And then I have the predictions of what will happen. So you're gonna circle one or the other. It says sink or float. And then I also have what actually happened. So you're gonna circle one of those and it says sink or float. I also have a little spot up here for your name. This can just be handwritten or typed, it's up to you. So here are the items I selected. I just chose some items that I found around my house, and I also chose some items outside. I'll just go through my items for you now. So I have a stick that I found on my nature walk. I have a pine cone that I also found on my nature walk. I have a hair clip, a bottle of hand sanitizer, a red button, a blue bead, a chip clip, a key, a cup, a little tin holder, a water bottle, and then I also have a pen. Now I'm going to go through the instructions of the activity. So I have my object set up on this side, I have my bin of water set up in the middle, and then I have my prediction sheet just set up to the other side here. How you're going to play the activity is you're going to choose one object from your pile of objects. You're going to write that object down on the top of your sheet. You're going to first make your prediction of whether or not it's going to sink or float. So you'll circle that option that you chose. Then you're going to place it in the water and see what actually happened with the object. So then at that point, you will circle sink or float. So now I'm going to start by going through my objects. I'm just going to go in order that they're placed on the table. So I'm going to start with my blue cup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write cup in the object spot. Then I'm going to make my prediction of what I think is going to happen. So I think the cup is going to float. So I'm going to circle float. Then I'm going to place it in the water and see what actually happens with the cup. So I'm going to place it in, give it a few seconds, and the cup floats. So I was correct. The next item on my list is a tin dipping cup container. So I'm going to just write tin container in the blank spot. And my prediction of this is probably going to be float because it's similar to a cup. So I'm going to circle float. And now I'm actually going to see what happens. So I'm going to put it in my water bowl. And it does float. So I was correct on that one as well. And you can kind of put a little check mark beside just to see how many you get right and how many you get wrong. The next object is going to be my water bottle. So I'm going to write water bottle in the object spot. And now I'm going to make my prediction. So I think it is going to float. So I'm going to circle float. Then I'm going to place it in the water again. And it floats. So I was correct again. So I'm going to give myself a check mark towards the side. So my next object is going to be my pine cone that I found outside. So I'm going to go ahead and write that in the object spot. And I'm going to make my prediction. So I think the pine cone is going to float because it's super lightweight. Now I'm going to put it into the bin and leave it for a few seconds just to see what it does. And it floats. So I'm going to give myself a check mark for that item. My next item is going to be the key. So I'm going to write that in my object spot. And then I'm going to make my prediction. It's a little bit heavy, so I'm going to say it's going to sink. Now I'm going to place it inside the water. And it sank really fast. So I'm going to circle sync of what actually happened, and give myself a check mark. Next item is going to be the chip clip. So I'm gonna write chip clip. And I think that this item may sync, so I'm gonna circle sync. And I'm gonna see what actually happens. And I was wrong, this item floats. So I'm gonna circle floats. And I'll put a little X. My next item is going to be the blue bead. And I think that this item is going to float just because it's super tiny and it's super lightweight. So I'm gonna write blue bead. And then I'm gonna write float. And this item kind of just sinks a bit and then floats to the top. So I would say I was like half right for that one. So I'm just gonna circle kind of in the middle. My next item is going to be the red button. So I'm gonna write that down. And I think the red button is going to float. So I'm gonna circle float and then stick it in the water. And it floats. So I'm gonna give myself a little check mark for getting that one right. My next object is going to be my sanitizer. So I'm gonna write that down. And my prediction for the sanitizer is that it is going to float because it's kind of like a water bottle. So I'm gonna circle float and then place it in the water. And the item floats, so I was correct. So I'm gonna give myself a check mark. So my next object is the pen. So I'm gonna go ahead and write pen. And my prediction is that it is going to sink. So I'm gonna circle sink. And then put it in the water. And the pen actually floats, so I was incorrect on that one. So I'm gonna circle float and give myself a little X. My next object is my stick that I found on my nature hike. So I'm gonna go ahead and write stick. And this stick is super small and really light, so I think it's going to float. So my prediction is float. Now I'm gonna stick it in the water and see what happens. And it floats. So I was correct on that one. My next object is going to be a hair clip. And my prediction is going to be that it's going to sink because it kind of feels a little heavy and it's metal. So I'm gonna circle sink and place it into the water. And it sunk, so I was correct. And I'm gonna give myself a little check mark. So this is the final product of my recording sheet. So if you want to have a little fun and kind of test yourself on it, I added up my score at the bottom. And if you want to do a few rounds just to see if you can get better and better at predicting every time, you can do that. You can also try it with just a bunch of different items from around the house, from outside, and just have fun that way. If you're playing by yourself, you can just record it the way I did here. If you're playing with more than one person, you can choose each other's objects and kind of challenge each other to see how many you can get right. And those are the different ways you can play. Thank you all for participating in this science activity with me today. Please make sure you like and subscribe to more Greenways content to see upcoming videos.